Good evening and welcome to tonight's organizational meeting of the Garfield Heights City School District Board of Education. I call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. All right, I'll start with roll call. Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
All right. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Thomas motions, Mrs. Daniels seconds. Roll call, Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. We'll now move on to the nominations for board president. Can I get a nomination for board president?
I would like to nominate Millette King.
Any other nominations for board president this evening? I hear none. Can I please get a motion for Millette King to be the board president for calendar year 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. That was moved by Ms. Morrison, second by Ms. Cox. I'll take roll call. Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
And Ms. King.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations, Ms. King.
Thank you.
All right, I will now have to administer the oath of office. And then you will preside over the rest of the meeting, and you can have your gavel.
Come in the middle or?
I'll come to you. That's
Quick
easier.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we have to have a motion to close nominations first and then a
did
motion
we?
for election?
Maybe.
I think so.
All right, we'll go back. Can I get a motion to close the nomination for
So
board
moved.
president? Ms. Morrison? Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll take roll call. Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
And then we'll re-vote on the election of board president. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. I'll take roll call. Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
And Ms. King?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do this again. Congratulations, Ms. King.
Thank you.
All right, I'll give you the oath. I'll administer the oath of office. There you go.
Thank you.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I
I, Millette King,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as president
discharge my duties as president
in and for the said Garfield Heights City School District,
in and for
in and for the
in
said
and for the said
Garfield Heights City
Garfield
School
Heights City
District
School District
of Cuyahoga County, Ohio,
of Cuyahoga County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability,
and in accordance with the laws
in accordance with the laws
now in effect
now in effect
and hereafter to be enacted
and hereafter to be enacted
during my continuance in said office
in my continuance in said office
and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
until my successor is chosen and qualified.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you everyone for your support. I greatly appreciate it. Now moving on to the election of vice president. Can I get a nomination for vice president?
I would like to nominate Heather Morrison for vice president.
Second. Is there any other nominations for vice president? So that was moved by Ms. Thomas, motion by Ms. Thomas, and second by Ms. Cox. Could I get roll call?
Wait. I just
Oh, we
made the
gotta-
nomination.
We have to close the nominations,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
Could I get a motion to close the nominations?
So moved.
Second.
Could I get roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Cox, Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Now, could I get a motion on the election of Ms. Morrison as vice president?
So moved.
That was moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Ms. Cox. Could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
and Ms. King.
Yes. Congratulations, Ms. Morrison.
Thank you.
May I have the Mr. in the office too? Okay. All right, ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I, Heather Morrison,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will
the
support
Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially discharge
my duties as Vice President
my duties as Vice President
in and for the said Garfield Heights City School District.
in and said for the
Heights City-
Garfield Heights City School District
of Cuyahoga County, Ohio,
of Cuyahoga County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance
and in accordance
with the laws now in effect
with the laws now in effect
and hereafter to be enacted
and hereafter to be enacted.
during my continuance
What was that?
during my continuance
During my continuance
in said office
in said office
and until my successor
and until my successor
is chosen and qualified.
is chosen and qualified.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations. All right, so now, we need to establish our 2025 board meeting schedule. We have a list of all of the meetings for, the year, with us staying with our meetings on the same day of the month. We just have a few exceptions. I know January will be a Tuesday because of the holiday, and there may be another one in February, maybe. That's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Did you say another one, Miss? February. So January and February, because of the holiday, falls on a Monday. We would have our meeting on that Tuesday. Could I get a motion to accept the regular meetings on the third Monday of every month, beginning at 6 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Morrison and second by Ms. Thomas. Could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
and Ms. King.
Yes. Could I get a motion to establish the board member service fund in the amount not to exceed $20,000 for the 2025 year?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Ms. Thomas?
we have an extra comma in 20,000.
No, I'll fix that.
Yeah, should be a period. Thank you.
Madam President,
Ms. Davis?
just for clarification, exactly what do we use for, the member service fund? And, do we have any rollover from last year? Like, about how much did we spend and how did we utilize it?
So we spend it, board meeting salary, so per meeting, goes towards that. And then, when we go on the annual, like capital conference, any conferences you go on, the daily rates, and some of the stuff that's reimbursed goes into that fund. I would say in years past, sometimes there have been donations made from the board for certain things that counts towards that. But it's a total of 20,000. I can get that breakout for you and send it over. It's board calendar year, so from January 1 to December 31st. So it'll cover over 2 fiscal years for you guys.
It does our reimbursement for cell phones and
I'll have to check on that.
come out of this fund, or is that a different fund?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check. I'll check with our attorneys on that.
Ms. Thomas?
When we have board retreats and we have, trainers, does that come out of this fund?
Like if there was like a PD for you guys for it, that would most likely come out of this fund. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Could I get roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
and Ms. King.
Yes. Okay, could I get I need to appoint one board member as the delegate to the Ohio and National School Board Association conventions for 2025, with remaining board members to serve as alternate delegates. So for the last several years, it has been me. Is anybody else interested? Ms. Cox? Is anyone else interested? All right, I appoint Ms. Cox to to represent us at the Ohio and National School Board Association meetings.
Do we have to vote on that?
Yep. So, could I get a motion to accept Ms. Cox as our delegate at the Ohio and National School Board Association conventions for 2025?
So moved.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
and Ms. King.
Yes. Okay, board president's appointment of representatives and liaisons. So let me ask a question, Phil. Should I go through my whole list? Because
Yeah,
it's different than what's here.
yeah. Go through the list that you guys want to appoint, and then I can make sure it happens on the minutes and the agendas moving forward.
And do I ask for a motion for all of these once we're done?
Yeah. So let's appoint everyone to the committees, liaisons we want, and then we'll do roll call motion
Okay.
at the very end.
All right, so I did look at our, who had what last year and did some switching around so that we can all get, opportunities in other areas and grow as board members. So, of course, our CVCC representative is Ashley Thomas, and I do want to officially congratulate Ashley for being, elected as president of CVCC. So everyone, please congratulate Ms. Thomas for her milestone. Congratulations. All right, so for our legislative committee, I'd like to appoint Ashley and Heather. For our strategic plan committee, we're going to remain with Heather and Tandika, because that will be wrapping up in the first or second quarter of the year, so we want to continue with that, have continuity with that. The finance committee, I would like to appoint Heather and Michelle. For the policy committee, Tandika and Ashley. What glasses do I have on? No wonder I can't see. And then for the OSBA liaison, that would be Tandika. Wellness liaison, I had Ms. Cox for that as well. the Family and Community Engagement Liaison, Ms. Daniels. The Academic Excellence Committee, that would be Tandika, Ms. Cox, and Ms. King. And I believe that's it. Is there anything that I missed?
Did we have a liaison to the city?
That's the Family and Community Engagement Liaison. So could I get a motion to appoint the representatives stated for the liaison and representatives for the 2025 academic year or calendar year?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, could I get roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. Can I get a motion to authorize the superintendent to employ temporary personnel as is needed for emergency situations such as employment to be presented for approval by the board at the next regular school meeting, or next regular board meeting?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Can I get a motion to authorize the superintendent to employ temporary personnel as is needed for emergency situations?
So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Ms. Cox. Is there any discussion?
Madam President,
Ms. Cox?
can you provide some details on what this looks like?
Yeah, there's some situations that we will need to respond to or hire for prior to a board meeting, but this allows us to hire in lieu, not in lieu of a board meeting, but until we can get to the board meeting for final approval.
Madam President,
Ms. Davis?
is it possible for us to move away items 4.4 through 4.6? Just because of the way our agendas are situated?
We could. Will Ms. Thomas like to amend her motion to move and waive 4.1 to 4.6?
Yes.
And Ms. Cox, would you still second?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Part of the agenda looks like it's 4.4 through 4.5, so the agenda may need to be amended. But at the state 4.1, 4.2, and 4.6, so I'm missing a page.
I got it.
Maybe I'm missing a page.
I got 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, I got it.
I have 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, my request was to possibly just move away 4.4 through 4.6, because those are all kind of bunched
That's,
together.
is that not what
I
I
think you
said?
said 4.1.
Oh, I'm sorry. So that would be changing the motion to move and waive the reading of 4.4 through 4.6. Ms. Thomas, you could still good with that?
Yep.
And Ms. Cox, you're still good with the second? Any discussion?
Yes, Madam President. Just want to ask Dr. Reynolds and Phil primarily deal with our attorneys. Just are we currently satisfied with our representation with counsel that we have thus far on your end? I know on my end, I've been satisfied with the representation that these attorneys have provided for us. Just wanted to make sure that you guys are having the same experience that the board is experiencing too.
Yes, they've done a great job with guidance. And there have been some opportunities where I've been interested in a second opinion, But as in just kind of the basis of what we're doing in the district and protection of the district, I think we've done a really good job. What we've had is a very conservative approach to how to respond to certain things, and it's served us well. Phil, if you had anything to add to that?
I think for general counsel, Wes has done a fantastic job. I know that Dr. Reynolds and I come into some unique situations for which, you know, it is a conservative approach, but at the end of the day, they do the best for the board when it comes to representation. They make sure that they put the least liability on the shoulders of the Board of Education in the district. Now, I'll tell you, Squire Patton Boggs, who you recently met with, Mike Sharp, in December, they do a fantastic job keeping us up. They also have the institutional knowledge of the school district. Riley Law is our construction attorney who writes all the resolutions for the construction. Anything that we had to do with ESSER funds, Mr. Riley was fantastic with. Again, he's been working with our district for 20 plus years. And then Peters, Kalale, and Markakis are particularly important behind the scenes when it comes to property appraisal. So I know last year was the first year in I think a long time the board had to make some decisions on property complaints, but they do a nice job of monitoring that with the county court of appeals, and so far has really helped keep the liability off of the district on those things and have explained things for us. So I've been pretty satisfied with them all as well.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All right, hearing none, could I get roll call, please?
Yes, Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
and Ms. King.
Yes. Can I do 5.1 and 5.2 together? Mr. Oko, do I have to do that separately?
We're supposed to have a tax budget hearing. We should probably sit for a few minutes.
Okay.
And so it's supposed to be a separate public hearing. So if we sit for maybe 5 minutes, see if anyone wants to come and talk about the tax budget we submit, and then we can take action on it. And
Okay.
I can also talk about it if you guys have questions in the meantime.
Are there any questions while we are holding our tax budget hearing for our tax budget? Is there any questions for Mr. Oko or anything that you would like to highlight, Mr. Oko?
Well, let's start. Are there any questions, outstanding questions you guys have for it? No. This is an annual document we have to prepare for the county. If you remember, we're on 3 different calendar fiscal years. So we have our fiscal year, which is July 1 through June 30th, then the federal fiscal year, which is October 1 through September 30th, and then we have the county fiscal year, which is January 1st through December 31st. So this is in preparation. Basically, what it does, and the big thing is it tells them that they are going to levy a certain amount of millage against our constituents in the district, and we are requesting them to collect the funds because we have to prove operational need for it. So the big thing, and I mentioned this last year, is that our 002 bond fund is negative $700,000. The way our bonds were structured when they refunded them in 2014 and 2015 was that the community would pay less over time, but there would be a balloon payment in fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. So what that does is now we are paying the large principal we paid it in December, and we have one last payment before the millage drops off in tax year 25, which is fiscal year 26 for us. The county refuses to increase the millage to cover that amount, and they state that our cash balance in the 002 fund has enough to cover it. We do not. So the county will have to levy additional millage to make sure we cover our obligation to the bond in 26. So on the document that you're approving, it will show the millage that I have requested the county to levy against the citizens of Garfield Heights to make our bond payment without us going negative in the 002 fund. The county won't do it. So the county will continue to levy what they've been levying for the past few years, but that is that's the gist of the tax budget. So they make us prove that we need to use all the funds that we're asking for.
All right, well, we'll wait for a few more minutes in case we have any citizens that come in and have any questions. All right, thank you. We did not have anyone join us for our tax budget hearing, So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2501, a resolution to approve the 2025-2026 tax budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Morrison, second by Ms. Cox. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
and Ms. King.
Yes. Could I get a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Daniels and second by Ms. Morrison. Can I get roll call?
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Meeting adjourned. All right. Welcome to the special board meeting for the Garfield Heights City School District. Tonight is January 13th, 2025. I'll call the meeting to order. Could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Could I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Ms. Daniels. Is there any discussion? Could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Tentative agenda review. We have our tentative agenda for Tuesday, January 21st. Are there any questions or discussion?
Madam President,
Ms. Thomas?
I see that we do have a few more coach positions filled here. Do we have an update on track?
Not currently. I could get in contact with Mr. Cruz immediately and find out where we are with track.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion? I do have a question, 19.3 and 19.4. Are those two separate donations? Yes?
Yeah, so 19, let me pull it up. Okay, so 19.3, I believe Dr. Reynolds is the book donation.
Yes.
And then 19.4 is the class of 1974 is donating $500 to the scholarship fund for a local scholarship. But then I'll let Dr. Reynolds talk about that.
Dr. Reynolds, could you update us on both of those?
Yes. The second one, I'm not privy to the information on 1974, class of 1974, but we were in contact with the Sanctuary Church, Pastor Mark Smith. He contacted us because he wanted to donate books to our students, and they were great books. They were beautiful books, brand new, and wanted to donate them to our district, and we wanted to make sure that we passed a resolution for accepting this donation. But we've already have plans for those books to make sure they're in the hands of students as soon as we possibly can get them in there.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam President,
Ms. Daniels?
What age group do these books cover? Are these our elementary or?
All our elementary students, yes.
So they're going to be going in our vending machines?
Yes, that's exactly where they're going. That's exactly where they're going. They're going right in our vending machines. We're always looking for opportunities to refill those vending machines, and that is actually the plan, to make sure they're getting
Can you maybe clarify, since the vending machines came up in the public, like what are these book vending machines in
Yes.
our school district?
there. In each building, there are vending machine, book vending machines, the same thing you would see in, for potato chips or any other items in a vending machine. But students have an opportunity to collect the coins, and with that coin, you can go ahead and, all the books are on display, and you can go ahead and choose your book, the one that looks most interesting to them, and they go ahead and use that as a incentive for either good behavior or just doing well in school, and they're able to select their books. They get very excited about those opportunities, and those coins are big gold coins, so they look the part as well. We'd like to continue those efforts, and I was gonna have a conversation with Phil about some funding for those things, but luckily, we had a donor to come through for us and do a great job.
Do we link those tokens with like some of our PBIS initiatives?
Yes, all of those incentives, whether it is, again, for good behavior, and our students have been doing well, and we'll be talking about the student data for second quarter as well. But the students have been doing well. And even for our students who are doing well in the classroom and behavior, we want to make sure we're providing those incentives for them to continue to read. Which is going to be a heavy push right now, but we're going to do something a little differently next year. Where we're going to be focused on reading across content areas as well. So this helps.
Awesome, love to hear that, reading across content areas.
Oh, yes.
Are there any other, questions or discussion points for our, upcoming board meeting agenda? Mr. Oko, can you make sure that all of the, committee reports get updated?
Yes, I absolutely can. Yeah, I'll update the
We may not-
agenda, I'll update the agenda with all the new information
Okay.
from, yeah.
We may not have a lot of, committee reports for our first meeting, but we wanna make sure that we get that updated. Any other questions or discussion points?
I do, Madam President,
Mr. Oko?
I do want to update you guys, a couple of things under the financials, 9.2, 9.3. 9.2 is a transfer resolution, so we do this every year, usually twice a year, once in January, once towards the end of the year. Move money into some of the control budgets that the board oversees throughout the year. So one of the big ones is athletics. So you'll see on the cash report, they usually run negative through, they don't pull in a lot of receipts, especially with not having a football field last couple of years. The board always releases funds as the year goes on, so there's a large $200,000 one in there that should hold them over, and may have to do a smaller one towards the end of the year. And then there is a 009 classroom supplies that we're moving some money over. So we as a district over the years have kind of pared back fees for students, and this is to cover that from the general fund. So it should keep us pretty on course to even out towards the end of the year, but that's that. And then appropriation resolution, submit to the county just to make sure that we're keeping up with what we're spending and what we're appropriating for expenditures throughout the year. So those transfers will take account into that, and then the county will send us updated, or will be updated with the county financially.
Anything else? All right, we'll move on to 2.3. Again, I've had an inquiry into naming the basketball court after Coach Sonny Johnson. I did want to bring that back to the board to see if the board is interested in changing our policy And there's a copy of the policy in front of you. Alright, so it doesn't sound like there is a interest to,
I'm sorry, Madam
yes.
President. May we have time to look over this policy and maybe compare our policy to other districts' school facility naming policies?
Sure.
Thank you.
Or I will probably recommend that we put this matter into the policy committee for them to research and maybe give a recommendation back to the Board of Education, maybe by like, I don't know when you guys have your next meeting, but maybe if we could just have some feedback, maybe by, you know,
Next month.
February or
Yeah.
March, maybe by our March
March meeting.
work session. That way we can have, I think it'd be more appropriate to just kind of throw that back into the policy committee's hands. Exactly what are we, was there a formal request again?
Yes. All right.
Any type of petition or anything, or anybody wanna, and I guess the recommendation with the formal request is to, you know, I guess we're doing it now for the policy committee to review it and give recommendations.
Yes. So we will send that to our policy committee, which is Tandika and Ashley. Thank you for that recommendation, Ms. Daniel.
Madam President,
Ms. Thomas?
do our committees have chairs?
I would ask that the, two individuals get together and decide who'd like to be chair of that committee.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President,
Mr. Ocampo?
so I gave you two policies in here. One is commemoration of school facilities, and then one is advertising and commercial activities. Would the policy committee be open to looking at not only the basketball court naming, but also the stadium naming rights? So we, you know, that we also have an opportunity to go out and look and see if anyone wants to name the stadium, possibly advertise. I put that in there. I thought that was part of the discussion tonight, so.
Madam President, question, I know in, for other organizations, that I've, been a part of, to name a facility, I don't know if it's, there is a donation that takes place, is that the case? I know I have the policy in my hand, but I just wanted to know historically if that was the case here.
Yeah.
So, the history, Blogger on Field was the name of the old history. He was a doctor from the 1930s. He dedicated land and significant amount of money back in the day for the track and the field. So I think, from what I understand, it would be like advertising, which would mean we'd look for, I think, a donation. But I'll let the policy committee look it over.
So it'll be classified as advertising versus like sponsorship?
That's why I would like the policy committee to look at it. I think.
Yeah, maybe.
So there's,
Naming, I don't think
there's two
naming.
different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I get why you put this here, just in case we want to solicit corporations to say, for instance, the scoreboard or something like that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be cause usually those things are temporary. I think we do that already in our gym to some extent, in the basketball gym. I see some banners that's up.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time.
So I think the most active one we have currently is Coca-Cola. So that's a 5-year contract with them. We purchase Coca-Cola products, but then they also give us scoreboard signs, menu signs, and like they give us a upfront, or they did give us an upfront amount of money in 2017 to use for athletics and student activities. So I think that's probably the most active one we had. I know Mr. Cruz has been working on getting banners in the gym and possibly like banners on the stadium fencing for the new football field. But I think that's the question, how does the board want to move with the field?
There's probably a few components. The naming overall is something
Yeah.
totally different, and if you go by this policy here, contribution to the enhancement of education, you know, we don't know if it's monetary. We may want to elaborate on types of naming opportunities. Yeah, I would be interested in what other districts are doing as it relates to that, especially anybody who has named a new facility recently and what their policy looked like and how that went about.
And
Because
just,
capital
Yeah.
projects are usually comes with, a fiscal piece.
and just so we're all on the same page, in the case of gyms and stadiums, in gyms, you can name the gym and also you can name the floor itself.
Right.
And then so with the field, you can name the stadium and also you can name the field. So there are options there. If those are things, and you probably, when you pursue this with the policy committee, there are options of doing that. For me, in my experience, school district I worked in North Carolina, we were provided a substantial amount of funding from Lowe's. So the field became Lowe's Field, Lowe's Stadium, but the field was something totally different, a totally different name. So just so everyone is on the same page, there are multiple options if we're looking at naming, but stadium can be named and the field, something totally different, so. Court and the gymnasium.
Yeah, I mean, and the locker rooms and
You sure
that's
did.
what I do for work, so, and I guess that's just a decision that we need to make, as a board. Do we want to, move forward with a campaign to raise funds, you know, for, the continuation, cause we still need a, you know, do we have a field house? Do we still need a concession stand? You know, do we really, you know, do we wanna try to move forward with the campaign with some of the partnerships that we're creating to get the funding, through these naming opportunities, to build what we need for, not just the facilities, but, and then just also making sure we're clear where the funds for these naming opportunities are gonna be designated. So would they be designated for the upkeep of the field? Because we know with this new turf field, you know, there's gonna be a different level of upkeep. It's a financial responsibility. So with the person with the naming rights for the field, will those funds be allocated to that? So just really making sure that we, you know, have a policy that states that we could go into a fiscal campaign for capital items outside of, you know, our traditional government funding. And then you would probably have some committees like our strategic plan committees and things of that sort that will be on those fundraising campaigns to kind of outline for the board on what it would look like, how we would allocate those funds, you know, how long will the name last, because some naming opportunities are only, you know, the LOIs only last for a certain period. Do they have to pay all the money up front, or will we accept a donation over time, or state gifts and different things of that sort? But it's a lot. It's a lot of work, but we have a beautiful field. The Browns have kicked it off, so this may be a great opportunity to align some of our community partners with supporting the work we're doing here in the district. Once you just need one big gift to get other
right.
folks rolling. But you just have to make sure that, you strike while the iron is hot, so that we can get the things that we need, for our students. And there's a lot of people that's interested in supporting our students in this district, just as the Browns are, so I think it may be something worth looking at, but I think we're moving in the right direction. We're starting with having a policy that allows us to move forward with that.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion or questions? All right. Moving on to 2.2, are there any updates on trainings that anyone has attended? Oh, I kind of went backwards and went to naming rights before I did training updates. Any training updates? All right. Could I get a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting at 6:52?
Madam President,
Ms.
I'm
Daniels?
sorry, before we adjourn, what is gonna be the scope of our retreat on I think you called me about a date, our upcoming
The
retreat?
22nd, I believe it is. 21st, 22nd. 22nd. We are going to look at our board, goals and establish new board goals. And also, we will look at our norms and see if those need to be revised as well. Is there anything else that anyone would like to see on our agenda? Oh, and also, board self-assessment. Is there anything else that anyone would like to see on the agenda?
Do we have a facilitator for our board goals and norms?
No.
And where is this self-assessment coming from?
I'm gonna share a document that I got off of, it's either OSBA or NSBA. I believe it's OSBA.
I think it's like, I got it as a thing, it's really good, it's like
So-
yes, it's, I forgot to bring it tonight, but I made copies for all of us to look at it, it's really good. I do think, Madam President, I do believe that when we're looking at our board goals and board norms, that, and maybe, Ms. Cox and Ms. Morrison could kind of help drive us with this, that it need to be in alignment with the direction that our strategic plan is going in. Because we want to make sure that the strategic plan committee, we're all just moving in the same direction.
Yes. I agree. And we can always come back because there may be some modifications between the time that we create our goals for the year and the strategic plan is approved. If we have to, we'll come back and modify our goals. If we see that we're way off track with what, our strategic plan. First, so we'll have, some information and some guideposts to get us going for our meeting on the 22nd of February. All right. Could I get a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:56?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Cox and second by Ms. Daniels. Can I get roll call, please?
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Meeting adjourned.